Welcome back to Gruber Motor Company, the auto repair shop of the future. What we're doing today is we're going to show you how to remove a Tesla Roadster power electronics module for shipment to our facility for a rebuild and repair. So typically these Tesla Roadsters come in for a variety of work. This particular one had a bunch of things done to it, including powder coating the wheels, which you can see look pretty good. And as a final task for these cars, we suggest a PEM upgrade since they're here, and it needs to be done every 10 years anyway. And these cars are going on 10 to 13 years. So what we're going to show you this morning is how to remove a power electronics module, a 2.x power electronics module, from a Roadster, either preparing it for shipment or in our lab here, what we do when we remove it and start the rebuild and repair process. At this point, I'm going to turn the video over to the Roadster expert, Peter Gruber.
All right, let's get started. We're going to get started on removing this 2.0 Roadster PEM. We'll take a quick look inside the trunk and see what kind of tools you're going to need to get this job done. Okay, so what we've got here, mostly for safety. Most of you may not have this, but what we have here are a pair of high voltage gloves. What these are going to do is protect you from any sort of electric shock from the high voltage that would be present. However, there really shouldn't be any present, in which case we have our backup, which is going to be a multimeter. We're going to check for any high voltage with this. Next, what we have is a 3/8 wrench with an extension. We've got a 8mm socket, 10mm socket, and a 13mm socket. You're going to want to get a bit set. What you're looking at here is a T20 security bit, 5mm hex, and a number 2 Phillips head. At this point, we're going to shut down the high voltage system. First thing we're going to need to do is jump into the diagnostic menu and shut off the APS. Then what we're going to do is stop the VMS. After that, we're going to pull the 30 amp fuse for the 12 volt battery in the front. Lastly, what we'll do is we will pull the orange service disconnect for the main high voltage battery, and that will effectively kill the high voltage in the car. Okay, so one thing to note, when we shut off the APS, that is the main 12 volt system for the Roadster. That will power things like opening your door from the outside, your windows. What you're gonna wanna do before you turn that off is make sure you have a window rolled down. If you have a soft top, perhaps remove it or roll it back. And finally, and most importantly, make sure the car is in tow mode. If it's in tow mode, it will allow you to freely roll it around. So if you ever have to move the car while the PEM is out, you can at least still move the car. To enable tow mode, we're going to go to the wrench in the bottom left corner. I'm going to go left to the third screen. In the top right corner, you can see tow mode. It's going to ask us, are we okay with this? We say okay, bottom right corner, and we are now in tow mode. You're not going to hear anything. You may hear a slight click, but you can always take off the parking brake and ensure it is free rolling. From here, we'll inhibit the APS. To do that, find an area of the screen that has no buttons, nothing interactable, and tap a few times. And then the service diagnostics menu will pop up. Ask us for the pin, which is 1050. Select OK. We'll go to controls at the bottom, and we'll select inhibit APS in the top left corner. Yes, bottom right corner. All right, the car is now free rolling and the APS is inhibited. All right, let's pop the front hood. Okay, we'll open up the front hood gently. Make sure you put your lever on to help hold it up. And what we're looking for is this inline fuse here. We pull off the top and a 30 amp right there. That's the fuse we want to pull. All right, now that we've pulled the fuse, we're going to stop the VMS from running. The reason we do this is to keep the VMS firmware from corrupting. Now, most of you won't have Tesla's tools to perform this, or any tools to do this job. There's a slight chance of corrupting the VMS. It doesn't happen very often, and in the worst possible case, it's absolutely recoverable. Most of the service centers can do this as long as they still will service Roadsters. One of your final fallbacks is us. We can fix your VMS, but again, very slim chance that you have a problem. So just for our sake, we're going to stop the VMS. Okay, now that we've performed all the necessary steps, it's time to pull that high voltage disconnect. All right, so there are two ways you can do this. The hard way, which is reaching in from the top. Believe me, it's possible. You reach in and you can pull the service disconnect this way. However, for most of you, especially beginners, first timers, the easiest way to do this is to pull this wheel off, and we'll get off the forward wheel arch, and then you'll have plenty of access to that service disconnect. So let's show you that now. Okay, so there's a couple ways you can remove the wheels or lift the Roadster. However, you do need to be careful how you're lifting it. There are 4 lift points underneath the Roadster, clearly labeled by a sticker. If you have a 2-post lift, you can't just simply use those lift points. There is a secondary one in the back of the Roadster on both sides that you need to use, and we'll show you real quick what that looks like. So we can see here, we've got a 2-post lift, and we are using the front pad to lift it in front here and over here. However, in the rear, like we mentioned, this is your rear lift point. You can see we're not using that to lift the car. If you do that, it will teeter back. You've got a lot of weight in this battery, and you don't want to do that. So you're going to lift it back here, but you're going to need either special lift posts, either from Tesla if you can get them. I believe we make them. Or if you want to get creative, you can also use these lift pads in the rear. However, you're going to need to get a block of wood. We typically use a 4x4 cut square, as small as possible footprint, because up underneath here, you've got a brake line, and you need to get around that brake line and not pinch that. Okay, to remove the wheels, I'm using this impact wrench and a 10-point spline. You should have one in your Roadster toolkit. Every Roadster comes with one. I wouldn't recommend using an air impact, and if you can, use a breaker bar. Okay, now that we've got the wheel removed, we're going to get off this forward wheel arch by removing these 5 8mm bolts. All right, now we got that last bolt out. Let's pull out our panel. Start from the right over here, tuck it down. Let's see, that will just come out on its own. Okay, our service disconnect is right there. Some of you may have a subwoofer in this spot right here, so it's likely to obstruct your view of the plug. So what you need to do is just reach your arm back here till you find it. It's there. Okay, let's get this service disconnect removed. Latch up, straight back, and as quick as possible. Don't delay. Pull it out quickly. Okay, there's your service disconnect. Make sure you wait at least 2 minutes before you put that back into the battery. Now, we're going to get this service window open so that we can start to disconnect the cables going into the PEM. These are the T20 security Torx bits, and there are 4 of them holding down this window. All right, here we can see Tesla's safety warning label, warning of high voltage and experienced technicians only. Okay, time to glove up. Let's check to see if there's any voltage present. Battery negative, battery positive, that's okay. Battery negative, battery positive. That's okay. Okay, so what we just did was check to make sure there was no high voltage present on the high voltage bus coming from the battery. If there was, or if you see anything over 3 volts, do not touch it. You've still got voltage present and you do not want to get shocked. So what we did is we measured between the battery negative and the battery positive posts. And you can see we're well within the limits. Now that it's safe to work on, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the battery cables, and we're going to remove all of these 10s here. The battery positive here is a 13. All right, to get these cables out, we're going to have to undo this 30 millimeter nut ring. I happen to have one right here in my pocket. I know this isn't a common tool for most, but if you've got a crescent wrench, that will work just fine. Okay, once that's off, you can see we've got a rubber gasket here. All you need to do is just pull. Make sure it's not catching on anything. Clamp the cables together on the inside of the service window and just pull it straight out. And there you go, there's your first cable. 2 more to go. Okay, now that we've got the 2 battery cables out, we're going to remove the charge port cable next. There's 4 cables coming from the charge port. Purple wire here is your pilot signal. Green one here is your ground, and then your red and black are the 2 lines coming in. These 2 are 13s. This one is a 10. This guy is just simply a connector. All right, to take out this charge port cable, all 4 of these are not going to fit through this small hole here, so we're going to have to do them 1 or 2 at a time. I typically just do 1 at a time. So take your pick and send them through 1 at a time. And make sure when you're pulling out this pilot that you don't snag the connector, because you don't want to pull that terminal out. And again, we'll put that off to the side. And we're done in the service window. Let's take off this APS input. This one's going to be a white tab back. Push on the front and sometimes gently rock it and pull it back. They do stick sometimes, but so to remove this guy, sometimes it can be difficult. They do stick sometimes. Just make sure that this white tab is pushed back. You should be able to then push this black tab here in. And then what you may have to do is rock it back and forth, do it gently, as you're pulling it out. Okay, let's get the grounding strap removed from the PEM. It's either going to be on this right-hand side of the PEM, or in the case of this one, it's going to be over here on the left-hand side. Now you can see the grounding strap goes from the PEM to the battery. However, we're just going to remove the grounding strap from the PEM itself. And this is a 10 millimeter nut, so get that loosened. Don't drop the nut, and just tuck that cable back behind over here. Get it out of your way. Okay, now we're going to remove the 4 screws for the motor output service window. Now, mine is possibly going to look like yours, maybe look a little different. You may have a flocked version, but they're going to have the 4 screws in each of the corners. Next, what we're going to do is remove the 4 Phillips head screws. Now, don't worry, these are captivated. You can see here, it's not going to fall out if you unscrew it all the way. So get those unscrewed and don't lose that cover. All right, now that we've taken that cover off, we can now test these motor output cables for any high voltage. And it looks like we're not seeing any voltage, so that should be good. Let's get going on it. All right, so let's get our 7 millimeter nuts here removed. Make sure those do not drop, and get this clamp off here that is holding on these output cables. Okay, now get your 6 millimeter hex bit and remove the bolts that hold in these output cables. If you find it's difficult to get to these bolts, which you can always do, is get yourself a 13. We'll skip ahead a bit, but you can take out these 13s on the back side of the PEM that bolt it to the battery. And what that will allow you to do is to tilt the PEM forward so you can get the better access to these bolts here. Okay, now that we've got the cables loose, what we can do is we can pull them out, and what we'll do is we'll tuck them off to the left, just behind the trunk bin. Now they're out of our way. What we're going to do is use this window here to reach in and disconnect 4 connectors. First 3 are fairly easy. The 4th one is always the most difficult for everyone. But we'll show you a few tricks to help you along the way. Okay, here's your first cable. Here's how this one works. What you're going to need to do, if you can, get 2 hands in there, one holding on to the side of the connector like so, and another one to grab this little tab right here and to pull it back. And then straight down. If you can't get 2 hands in there, which you can do, and again, you really shouldn't do this, but you got a fairly thick bundle of cables here. Hold on to the bundle here, grab onto the housing as much as you can with your index finger, and use your thumb to move it like so, and then pull it down. Let's move on to the next one. Should be the same style, but I'm not going to be able to get a second hand in there, so we'll use that technique I just showed you. And again, sometimes if you need to, rock the bottom of the connector down here and here, rock it back and forth. Sometimes that will help it to free it up and then break it free so you can get it out easily. Okay, there's your second connector. This one goes to the motor, temperature, encoder. All of those are running through here. All right, this one is just like that APS one that we removed over here. It's got the little white tab that you have to pull down first, and then you press here and slide it down. There's not going to be a whole lot of room back there, so what some people do is they prop the right side of the PEM up. Gives you a little more height, but it can be done in place. Looks just like this one, except it's got 6 pins instead of 2. Mostly what you're doing is just making sure you keep the pressure on this black tab here, and if you need to, rock it a little bit, not too much, but mostly you just need the clearance to pull it straight down. You can see there's that connector. Okay, if you're finding it difficult to get these connectors out, even that very last one, I'll show you right now how you can prop up this right side of the PEM. Make the job just a little bit easier for you. Okay, so you're going to want to get yourself an 8mm, and we're going to remove these 3 bolts on the side of the PEM over here. Okay, we've got our block of wood now. What we're going to do is we're going to reach in behind the PEM near the back here. Get our fingers underneath. And we're going to lift up the PEM gently and slip the block of wood towards the front, up underneath. And now we've got the PEM situated up. Okay, as you can see now, there is plenty of room to get your hand in here and to pull this connector out, including all of the other ones. So what you want to do is just reach in there and pull it down like so. Now it's out of the way, and we can work on getting the other side of the PEM taken apart. Okay, remove the other 8s holding down the PEM on this side. Okay, now that we've removed all the connectors, all of the bolts that hold in the PEM all the way around, you're going to need to get a second person to help you lift it out. However, while you're lifting it out, the person that's going to be on the driver's side of the vehicle, there's a fan duct underneath that you're going to need to remove before you lift it up out of the car. Make sure you pull that and remove it before you lift the PEM out. Otherwise, you're going to take the ducting with you, and you don't want to do that. So we'll show you how to disconnect that. Okay, so you can see this is the ducting from the underside, so you can actually see what's going on underneath. I would be standing over here, reaching in with my hand. So when I'm moving this clip, my thumb is pushing on this clip here to get it past our rail under here. And then what I'm doing with my fingers is I'm actually pushing this here, as you can see, to get it to slide to the left. Once it's at this point, it should just sort of roll and pop off, and you can leave it behind and pull the PEM up and away. So there's little tab clips here that just slide into the PEM. Now when you go to put it back in, what you're going to want to do is, again, get these lined up on the back side. Once those are lined up, it should sit flush with the PEM. And then what you can do is you can slide it towards the outside, but make sure that this tab over here pops out of the way. And what you'll do is basically just from underneath, pull with your fingers until you see or feel this thing click into place, and then you know it's secure. So on this side, what you want to do is make sure the other person's ready to go. Just lift your side up first as is, and then you want to go in with your other free hand, and you want to go to this tab in the back here, push it back, and then you're going to push either with your hand or with the second hand on the ducting towards the middle of the car. So I usually go in with my thumb, I push on it, and then I'll push with my index and other fingers on the ducting itself and push it towards the middle of the car. And once it slides and unlocks, then we'll be able to pull the PEM out. Now when you're pulling the PEM out, make sure it lifts straight up and avoid the weather seal on the trunk. Okay, so take the PEM over to the crate that we've sent you and just lower it into the crate. Make sure it's riding on the foam, and that's all you need to do. Box it up, ship it to us, and we'll get it fixed up for you. Okay, once you received your PEM back, installation is going to be the same as reverse. Once you get the service disconnect plugged back in, the APS typically will kick on itself. Same thing with the VMS, that will start up itself. And just remember to put in that 30 amp fuse. If you have any questions, send us a message, shoot us an email. We'll help you out. And there'll be more tutorials like this coming in the future, so keep posted, and thanks for watching.